Okay, this story is about the death of John the Baptist. I'm sorry. But every story of every believer, every person who is serving God, who loves God and who puts him first, has a happy ending. Even though this is a really sad story and he literally got his head chopped off. I'm just telling you up front right now. He was beheaded. He's not the only one. Other people have gotten beheaded for Jesus or for the Father, God. And it ends with a happy ending in real life because they go to heaven. And even though he died approximately 33 years old, he was born 6 months before Jesus, his cousin. And Herod Antipas, there's different Herods in the Bible and in history. And by the way, Herod is not really his name. It means son of a hero. He's not really a hero at all, but that's what his title was. And nobody really knows the father of Antipas, his name, Herod the Great, because it's lost in antiquity, as far as I know. And if you're a scholar and you know the answer to this, you won't be able to put it in there. You'll have to get a hold of me at servant@me.com is my email. But anyway, so here we go. This is a death of John the Baptist, and there's so much to share. I'm not sure if I can put it in one video. This might go 2 hours. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so let me find out. Let me tell you where he actually died. And we know this because of other writings, like a guy named Josephus. I've mentioned it before as a historian, a Jewish historian. There's lots of incredible information there. And he mentioned John the Baptist, He mentioned Jesus. He mentioned others. And that's one of the reasons, even though I know the Bible's true and all, it's just so cool. Outside sources was written like 60 years after this when Josephus wrote about this story. He wrote about John the Baptist, which we know that now John the Baptist isn't fairy tale. It's not a make-believe story. Jesus isn't a make-believe legend or something, like a myth or something. All right, so let's draw, kind of do our best to draw the land of Israel here. So we go like this, and then we have, you know what this is right here? Can you tell what I'm going to draw? So we go here like this. It comes down here, and it comes up here, and the Sea of Galilee. And then do you remember this area right here? And actually, this really could be like Phoenicia, this area. And it might not, I don't think Galilee maybe went all the way across, just for a quick drawing here. So I'll just do this. And then you have the Jordan River that comes down here. So this is Galilee. And I think I want you to really kind of know that for this story. And then you kind of go down here, and then you have this, this long, big kind of lake here. And then it goes like this, and whoops, I kind of drew that wrong. And then it kind of comes up here, and it comes down here, and it goes like this. And there's the Dead Sea, okay? Now, John the Baptist died 16 miles from the River Jordan, right here where it enters the Dead Sea, and 16 miles east, southeast, into a place, well, actually the area is here, it is called, and I haven't drawn this because this is really not mentioned very much in the Bible. I think it's mentioned once, maybe. And it's right here, right about, see if I can get it right there. See that dot right there? That's where John the Baptist died. This region right here is called Perea, okay? And Antipas, the son of Herod, one of the sons, his territory, and I think I'm going to do it just for fun, kind of do it a little different this time. His territory that he was ruling over was this region right here. Antipas was over Galilee. This is his area that he got when Herod died, Herod the Great. And then he also was over this area called Perea. Okay, so it's all through here. And it's at this fortress that was born. It was actually the first place, Janus, I think, or something. He actually built it 90 BC, 90 years before Christ was born. And then 72 AD is the one that was finally destroyed. And it went into Herod's hands about 30 BC, for those of you who want to know all that. Probably you know, but anyway. So this right here, right there, is where he died. And it was kind of a big, like, mountain, homemade mountain. And it was a big fortress right there with a palace. And then John the Baptist was put inside well, it's not inside the mountain, but let's say there's a palace here. He was put in the dungeon at the bottom there. And then they killed him probably in the dungeon by beheading him. How sad. Awful death. They're going to be judged by that. They're going to be judged for all that. And I'll tell you what the story was about. But basically there it is. It's kind of the region. That's where he died. And then let me go a little bit more into this. If you want to, you can skip through this, but I think you might find it pretty interesting. And then what I'd like to share is, who is this Antipas? There's history about him, but let me kind of draw some of this, see if I can do it. If we go back in the family tree line, we have Antipater, or also, it could be really, and I'm not sure which is right, it could be Antipas the first, okay? But anyway, Antipater had an Antipater. You know, a lot of times kids are named after their dads, so this could be 1, this could be 2. Okay, I'm not going to say all this and what all this is. And then basically what happened is, if we come over here, we have Antipater, and then from there we have Herod the Great. Okay, first we have a guy named Phasael. Okay, the first. And then we have Herod the Great. He wasn't that great. The only thing he was great at is architecture. He knew how to build incredible stuff. He was a genius at building stuff. But we'll call him Herod the Great, okay? Because that's what it was. That was his title after he died, I think. And then they had others. One of the names, and I'm not sure if it was over here or over here. I'm not sure which. But for right now, I'll just put it here. Salome. Now remember that name right there. Right there. Because that is a different Salome in this actual story that we're going to talk about. Okay, so Herod the Great, now what he did is he married, which is kind of crazy, evidently he married 10 wives. Woo! He had a whole harem. He was an Idumean, Idumean, from Idumea, and he was kind of half Jew, and also he was kind of a connection with the Jewish people. Anyway, he married all these wives. The first one he married evidently was a name named Doris. And most of these are Greek names because he was Hellenized. In other words, really, anyway, let me go on. Doris. And then his favorite wife, who he killed. I'm kidding. He was threatened by her or something. He felt like she was plotting against him, so he killed her. Then he tried to kill himself, and it didn't succeed. With some sort of plastic, I don't know about plastic, but butter knife type thing, and he didn't succeed, and he continued living. And his favorite wife, first of all, he banished her. He said, get out, when she came along. By the way, after she died, he brought her back in. It's like this story, these are true stories. Like, it's not fiction, it's not fairy tales. But there's a lot of what we call intrigue. You know, it's really crazy. All right, there's different spellings of her name. Mariamne is what I'll say. Mariamne the first, because he also married another, after she died, he also met someone 4 years later with the same name. Maybe that's what caused him to want to marry her again, because he missed Mariamne, the first who he killed. I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh, but it's like, this is crazy. All right, Mariamne second. And then he had another one named I hope I spell that right. Who cares about the spelling? Back in those days, I've found this over years, that back in those days, they didn't care about spelling. You know, wouldn't that be nice for us children, if you're watching this, or, you know, even adults, you know, or teenagers, you know, they didn't have spelling bees. It's all sorts of names and all. All right, there's that. And then I guess we have Cleopas, Pallas, then we have Phaedria, and then down here we have 2 no names. Nobody knows their names, I don't think. So he married all these wives. Anyway, a bunch of wives. Pretty tough to get along, and also a lot of jealousy probably. I don't know if they got along, but it's probably not. Now, let's see here. We have Maltese. I'll go back here. She and Herod the Great. I mean, he had lots and lots of kids. So just take a picture, just take a good look at that right now. I hope you can see all that. So Maltese right now, she had a guy named Archelaus, and then another one was Antipas. Here's Antipas. He comes in. Archelaus, by the way, one, if you remember, was in Matthew, the second chapter, when he kind of took over Judea. He was kicked out. And he was too later, by the way, by the Roman government. And he was called a tetrarch. Okay, tetrarch. Arch means over. Tetra means four. And in the past, when tetrarchs, word was used, they had 4 regions, 4 areas. But by the time it came along, that name stuck, that title. And he only had 2 regions that he was over. But anyway, and then Miriam the first, let me, do you see this so far? I'm trying to give you a good feel for this so you can take a look at this. Miriam the first had a guy named Alexander, and then she also had a guy named Aristobulus. So Alexander, we'll say Alex for short, and then Aristobulus. Aristobulus. Wow, long name. Aristobulus. Now, he had, do you see this so far? It's kind of crazy. And he had a daughter from Miriam. He had a daughter. I don't know who his wife was, but he had a daughter named Herodias. Here now we're going to get into the Bible here, because some of these names were mentioned in the Bible. Some of them was Josephus and his studies and his writing. Okay, Antipas, by the way. Hold on. See if you can see those names again. Yeah. So I just want to make sure you can see them real quick. Yes, there you go. And then what happened is Miriam, by the way, Miriam the second had a guy named Philip. Okay, Philip the first. I think he was the first. There was another one later on down here that was Philip. I don't know if it's 2 L's or 1 L. Philip the second or something, and he became a tetrarch. He was the best. By the way, he was at least sort of decent compared to all these others. They're a mess. The whole family was messed up. But anyway, now what's interesting is Antipas ended up marrying his niece. Like, it was terrible, and the Bible forbids it in the book of Leviticus, marrying family members like this. But he married her, Herodias. Philip had married Herodias. He first married his niece. He married her, okay? Because these were brothers right here. So he married Herodias, and then Herodias decided to skip Philip. Philip lived, he was evidently pretty rich, but he had no power. He didn't have a position or anything. And he lived in Jerusalem. And when Antipas came to visit his brother, when Antipas came to visit Philip, evidently Herodias started really liking Antipas. For one reason, and I believe this is what it was, she wanted the crown. She wanted to be a king. Even though he really wasn't a king, although that was a popular name at that time. I think it's in the book of Mark that he's called the king. But really, it's his tetrarch. He wasn't a king. He wasn't like Caesar. Anyway, wow. So this is crazy. But I think it's pretty interesting. So what happened is she married him and dumped him. Now, here's where John the Baptist comes in. Because what John the Baptist did, John, that wonderful prophet of God, knew all this, what was happening here. And he spoke against it. And the Bible says that. He spoke against Herodias and Antipas, these two, getting married. He said, it's unlawful for you to be marrying her because it's Philip's, your brother's wife. She divorced him to get to him because she wanted more power. And by the way, he never did get the king. And as a matter of fact, he went later on, he went into Rome and tried, I think it's 39 AD or something. He went into Rome trying to ask him for kingship, and they didn't like it and thought that was arrogant, and they kicked him out of Tetrarch, and he was kicked out. This is like crazy. Oh boy, I don't want to be there at the judgment seeing this whole mess, be done. And he was trying to reach them by preaching the truth. You and I need to preach the truth when people are doing wrong. We need to kind of gently and lovingly help them. John cared about them, and he was also fiery angry because of God's anger in him, pretty much, of the sin that they were doing. And it was wrong. He says unlawful for you. And he evidently, in the Bible, the Greek there, he did it over and over and over. Now, this is, I don't know if I should stop here because this could go on and on. I think I will. I just want to give a background thing because otherwise this video is going to be super long. I think this is what I wanted to share here. And then I'll tell you what happened exactly. Woo! But John the Baptist really spoke again. Oh, by the way, she's the reason for his death, not Herod the Great, even though he was the one who ended up doing it. Herodias tricked her husband Antipas into killing him. And boy, was that an intriguing story. We'll get to see it in the next video. So don't miss that one. It's like, wow. And how he did it was really super sad. How she did it was tricky, and she reminds me of an Old Testament character that we'll get into later named Jezebel. Ooh. Both women were manipulators and controlling and power hungry and mean and ruthless and wicked. They were horrible women. And Antipas was kind of weak. The guy should have stood up and did what was right, but he didn't. But he was tricked by her, and we'll get into that. There's kind of a background. I hope you enjoyed this. I think it's pretty interesting, all these, it's like a spider web here, like the web here. And you know what's also interesting I'd like to say is most people aren't aware of this, but there was a devil behind all this. I mean, he's behind the evil of the world. He's the tempter. He's what the Bible calls little g, God of this world. He's a ruler of this world. Wow, he really is in the atmosphere, in the power of he's a prince of the power of the air, and he's just moving around, and he's manipulating and causing people to sin and all. And the devil hated John the Baptist, and he also hated Jesus. In this story, we're starting in Matthew 14 here. His story is really the enemy trying to get to John the Baptist, and it's also near the middle of Matthew's book here of what he's writing. And he became a martyr. He gave his life to Jesus and laid life to God because he preached the truth, and he was persecuted and killed for it. Remember what Jesus said in Matthew 5. He said, blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake. Well, John the Baptist, John the Dipper, John the Baptizer was killed because he was a righteous man, a godly man. And then later, of course, Jesus is. So these two big figures, John and Jesus, both cousins, living for God, got their lives taken away from them because of their rightness and speaking and boldness and sharing the truth and trying to help others. All right, well, anyway, I think that's good for right now. We'll pick it up in the next story or in the next video. All right, thanks for listening. God bless.